Good morning and welcome to Toronto Police Headquarters. Today we have Homicide Detective Sergeant Gary Giroux, who will be providing an update into homicide number 39 of 2017, Anthony Soares. Today's video footage that will be shown is going to be graphic in nature, so viewer discretion is advised. Detective Sergeant?
Good morning. I'd like to update the media and the public with regards to Homicide 39 for 2017. This is the first opportunity that I've had to update the media with regards to this ongoing and active investigation, so I'd like to do that now. The deceased in this case is Anthony Soares. He was 33 years of age at the time of his death. The offense date in relation to this occurrence was Thursday, the 14th of September 2017, with regards to a shooting that came into the Toronto Police Communications Centre at 2:54 a.m. to a high-rise apartment building at number 6 Glamorgan Avenue, which is in the Kennedy Road and 401 area of the City of Toronto. The shooting took place in the lobby. As indicated earlier, I'm going to be releasing two videos. One is the narrative of the shooting, and the second video clip is a portion of the deceased's vehicle that he was in and the vehicle that the suspects drove to the scene in, and I will play those videos after I describe to you what takes place. The images I would describe are disturbing. The family of the deceased person, Anthony Soares, has been warned that there is an investigative purpose for showing this video, and as a result of that, I asked them to use their discretion whether or not they wish to view it. Out of respect to the deceased and the family, after the first shot is fired at the deceased person in the lobby area, his image is blurred in the video. There are multiple shots fired. He struck multiple times, but out of respect to the family, his image will be blurred after the first shot being fired. The purpose of the issuing of the video is to identify the reason for the shooting, to identify the offenders who are responsible for the shooting, and to generate witness involvement and or participation. The following is the narrative of the shooting. On Thursday, the 14th of September, 2017, at 2:54 a.m., the deceased, Anthony Soares, arrived by car to the front of 6 Glamorgan Avenue. The deceased was a passenger in this car. The car the deceased is within is a white Hyundai, new in appearance. The driver of the vehicle that Mr. Soares was the passenger in has been identified. He is a friend of the deceased person, and he is cooperating with the investigation. The deceased gets out of the passenger door in front of the foyer of 6 Glamorgan Avenue, which, as I indicated, was a high-rise apartment building. He has in his hands some takeout food from an area restaurant. The deceased walks into the main doors of the building, and he is clearly buzzing for access into the building. In essence, the deceased is trapped between the inner foyer area and the offenders who are on the opposite side of the glass. As this is going on, the suspects arrive in a four-door white Ford Fusion, which appears to have heavily tinted windows in the video. The suspect vehicle passes in very close proximity to the motor vehicle that the deceased has just exited from. While waiting in the foyer, the video shows the two suspects exit the Ford Fusion and rush the deceased in this particular location. The video will also show that as the suspects rush the deceased's position in the lobby, both of these individuals have handguns already in their hands, and are moving towards the deceased location very quickly. The two suspects run to the front foyer area and from the outside start to fire at the deceased through the glass windows. At this point, the vehicle that drove the deceased to the scene leaves the area for his own personal safety, but he later returns, and as I indicated to you, is cooperating with the investigation. The deceased is trapped between the suspects and the interior door. The deceased falls to the floor of the foyer. The suspects continue to fire at the deceased while he's lying on the floor. At one point, one of the suspects, wearing a burgundy hoodie, touches the metal frame of the lobby door in an attempt to hold the door open. Realizing that he has touched the door, The offender in the burgundy hoodie pulls his arm up his sleeve and begins to wipe what he believes is fingerprints that he's left on the door frame. Following that individual in the burgundy sweater continues to fire at the deceased while he's lying on the floor. Both of the suspects are armed with semi-automatic pistols. The video shows that both of the weapons lock in the open position, which indicates that the weapons are now empty. The two suspects run back to the Ford Fusion that's waiting for them, that has now taken the position where the deceased vehicle was earlier parked. One suspect wearing the burgundy hoodie gets into the front passenger seat. The suspect wearing the blue or black hoodie gets into the gets into the rear right passenger seat. The suspect leaves the property of 6 Glamorgan Avenue and travels at a high rate of speed northbound on Kennedy Road towards the 401 highway. As I indicated from pathology examination, the deceased was struck many times. The deceased was transported from the scene by paramedics to an area hospital. The deceased underwent emergency medical surgical procedures in an effort to save his life, and they were not successful. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to play the first video, which is the narrative of the actual shooting. As I indicated, the position of the deceased after the first shot has been blurred. And then I'd like to play the arrival of the suspect motor vehicle, which is a white Ford Fusion, very new in appearance with tinted windows. So that's the narrative of the shooting and the suspect's vehicle arriving and leaving. I can answer any questions if you have any.
How many times was the victim shot?
I can't comment specifically. I know how many times, but I can indicate to you that many is all I'm prepared to say.
And you said that the semi-automatic pistols were emptied. How many bullets do semi-automatic pistols hold?
It varies depending on if they're fully loaded or not, but anywhere from 10 to 15 rounds of ammunition in each of the two clips. Whether or not the clips were fully loaded is unable to be determined.
Detective Sergeant, give us an idea of what Mr. Soares' life was like at the time of the shooting, if you can shed any light into a possible motive.
That's part of the reason why I'm here. He does have a criminal past with the Toronto Police Service, and the family were certainly aware that that may, surface during the investigation. So he is known to us. I can indicate to you that he was involved in a relationship. He had a young child that lived in the city of Toronto. He was not on any current charges. So we're still looking in. He was not. We're looking into his lifestyle and his background, but as it stands right now, part of the reason for being here is to find out what the motivation is.
What about his relationship with the rapper Drake? Drake actually, as we know, put a Instagram post saying that this man was part of his family. What can you talk about when it comes to that?
Pretty much the same as you know. I've spoken to the family of Mr. Soares. They indicated that he was known to Drake. Drake was a friend of his. Many of the family members have met Drake, and I certainly would encourage him through his tweets to encourage anybody within the community to come forward with regards to any information that they have that may assist in solving his friend's murder.
Is Mr. Soares known to be part of any sort of organized crime or anything?
Not that we're aware of.
This is clearly a very organized, what looks to be a hit. I mean, these are two guys who want this man dead. Can you speak to what kind of shooting this is? I mean, do you believe this is gang-related?
Well, at this point, it's difficult to say. It certainly was very targeted. I agree with you. It was very focused. It was certainly overkill. Mr. Soares was clearly the target of the attack. There was another individual who was present that's clearly associated with Mr. Soares, and he's still alive, and he was allowed to leave. So whatever animus or whatever baggage that Mr. Soares had with these two individuals or any part of a group that they're associated to, at this point it remains unknown, but they were certainly only interested in the deceased person in this particular case.
It's clear they knew where he was going to be at this particular, and it was late, early in the morning, as you said, so is it your belief that somebody sort of tipped them off as to where he was going to be, or were they watching him?
Well, that's certainly something I'd be very interested in, and certainly my investigators and I have had a lot of conversation about. Is that is it somebody that was following them? Is it a happenstance meeting? Is it somebody who knew that he was associated to this car or the individual driving that car? Those are things that I'm interested in.
I might have missed this because I stepped out for a moment. Why did Mr. Soares and his friend, the driver, go to 6 Glamorgan Avenue that night?
There is a specific reason. I don't need to or want to get into why they were there that reason. It was an innocent purpose, and as a result of that, I don't want to comment on it.
Do you know where they were beforehand, like before coming to that building?
I do, and again, it's evidentiary in nature, and it's something that I'd like to keep to ourselves for the time being.
What about the Ford, the suspect vehicle? Did you get a partial plate? Could you track it down? Was it abandoned?
We did get a partial plate, and that investigation into the suspect motor vehicle is continuing. My hope is, despite the fact that there's not a lot of facial features that are shown of the suspect, the one in the burgundy hoodie, for example, despite the color, is wearing like scarlet red running shoes. There may be some familiarity to that individual and the vehicle, and that's the purpose. There has to be an investigative purpose for showing this type of material to the general public.
You mentioned the gentleman in the hoodie that tried to wipe the prints off the door. Were there any prints left on the door?
I can't comment on whether the forensic officers found anything, but he was certainly, despite the fact that he was involved in a very dynamic situation, he was evidence conscious with regards to the fact that with a bare hand, and his skin is dark, so he's a dark individual, is that he was aware that he touched the frame of that door and he was concerned about it. So despite the fact that he was involved in a dynamic shooting, he was evidence conscious.
Can you talk about Mr. Soares' family and how they've been over the last few days since this happened?
Well, obviously very distraught. We usually, in my practice, is to meet with like a family point person. We've done that. The family is very cooperative, provided us with anything that we need, and are interested in finding out who's responsible for this.
Any chance this connected to any other recent murders or really violent murders like that?
Difficult to say if anything is connected. I mean, of course, all of the shell cases, and there were many of them at the scene, we're going to be going into the Center of Forensic Sciences. Their IBIS system will tell us whether or not that firearm or those firearms were used in any other criminal offenses.
The one suspect wearing the burgundy sweatshirt and the red shoes, are you drawing any parallels with his choice of colors and any group that he may be part of?
No, I've learned over the years that that's a pretty fluid. The choice of colors and clothing is not overly specific unless I know who the individual is and they have some gang associations.
Have you been able to talk to the other individual that was there that night, the person that was in the Hyundai with them?
Absolutely.
And they're cooperating?
Cooperating, yeah. Very distraught. Felt horrible about leaving. I commented to him that there really actually was nothing else that he could do. He did return. He did contact the police. He spoke to my investigators, and he's doing whatever he can to assist us. But in a helpless position, he really had no choice.
And what is their relationship? Are they friends?
They're friends.
Do you believe that the suspect vehicle was right on their tail? Because in this video, it's hard to tell. Like, how close? I mean, they pull up right behind.
Right. Right. So we certainly know that on the street somewhere other than this location, they picked up the deceased car and followed them. And we've done an extensive video canvass of the area to determine whether or not we can actually find them driving contemporaneous to each other within the community, and that's still ongoing. Okay, thank you.
That concludes today's news conference. The video will be available on the Toronto Police YouTube. It will be made public shortly.